That familiar feeling for Ipswich Town fans as their side are dumped out of the FA Cup once again with a whimper. Is it part of a bigger plan or more evidence of an expensive misfiring squad? Join us to debate that. Here and more on Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. Welcome to the Flagship show. Joining me tonight, Seb, and as always, Joe Fairs in the central seat, if you're listening on podcast. And guys, we've got 48 hours. We usually have only 24 hours to get our thoughts together. So we've had a little bit longer this week. Joe, are you feeling any different to how you were feeling at 10 o'clock on Friday night?
No, not really. I think there's sort of a fair amount of clarity both in the pre and the post-match from McKenna as to what this game was going to be treated as, and it's how it was treated. And there obviously are frustrations with parts of the performance, but I think we got what we expected to get there.
Yeah, and Seb Brown Derby, the first of the double header at Wrexham. Seb, you're home in half an hour or less, weren't you? And have you got to go to work tomorrow and try to avoid certain people at work?
No. Thankfully, everyone at work is a Man City, Liverpool, and Man United fan, so I won't get too much grief tomorrow. But I've had a few texts off people, and I've just pointed out that next week is the real quiz, isn't it? We'll see how we get on next week, and that will very much put this game into context, and we'll never talk about it ever again, or people will want to bring it up again. Like Joe, once soon as you heard McKenna's post-match, everything became so clear, and he kind of hinted it in the pre-match as well. So I'm not sure any of us can sit here tonight too surprised at what went on Friday evening.
I think Paul's comment here, hello to the chat. Let us know you're there. Give us your views throughout. We'll dip in and out, and definitely time for questions to the guys too later on. Paul talking about 20-odd years of these performances in the FA Cup. I mean, it has kind of moved on in terms of its importance, hasn't it, Joe? And I'm pretty certain every year, usually we're losing to a lower class team than a divisional rival. But where's the FA Cup rank for you? I know that the promotion is going to be the number one priority for the ownership and all that kind of stuff, but does it hurt to keep seeing us going out so early on? I mean, at least it's not third round now, but is Paul right?
I think I still love the FA Cup and still like to see us do well in it, but the season sets itself up around the FA Cup this time, and for some reason this year, the fixtures of the FA Cup rounds for the Championship clubs are horrendous. Like, normally the fourth round is a free weekend for it, but that wasn't this year. As we saw over the weekend, the sixth round, if you get there, is across the Easter weekend, where you've got a double header, the Friday to Monday Easter, that you could lose both games off there, and you've got to find these in. So it did just feel such a crazy schedule for it this year for EFL clubs. It's fine for the Premier League clubs, but for the EFL clubs, it looks a really, really tough schedule. And I was fairly content to be going out there. I wouldn't have even minded going out in the third round and just trying to keep the season going that way. But I think Kieran McKenna felt the same when you hear what he said before the game. But yeah, I don't think the FA and the EFL between them, the scheduling of it has done them many favours for having teams wanting to actually progress in the Cup this year.
Yep. And this one from AD, who we saw at the racecourse on Friday night. Disappointing performance, mostly for the 1,200 Town fans who travelled all that way to support them. I mean, that's a difficult balance, isn't it? Because I think heart of hearts, Seb, we kind of know that an exit from the FA Cup, as much as I say, it's got history and kind of a little bit of prestige, albeit maybe not as much as it used to. But it's a long way to travel. I took Wrexham fans were giving it the big on Friday night about our support. That's 5 hours. Some even longer if they probably went on the coaches. We met Peter, who was over from Cape Town. That's a lot of people in and away, and a long way from home on a Friday night, with a high probability of being disappointed. And that's probably the main annoyance, Seb. And it's right that those fans, were among them, are a bit annoyed on that respect, isn't it?
It is, yeah. You can kind of understand why people are frustrated, not to necessarily, I think, to the extent that we've seen on kind of message boards and social media for the last 48 hours or so, because everyone knows promotion is the ultimate aim. As I said earlier, we will look back this time next week, and whether or not this game is remembered in the grand scheme of the season, it will be dictated by next week. It is frustrating. I totally understand. I'm in a different position because it's 15 minutes up the road for me, and if people came up to do a double header with the under-18s and the FA Cup at Dickinson on Thursday night and then the Wrexham game, I can totally understand time taken off work, travel, etc. But in all honesty, surely we all expected 10, 11 changes. We kind of thought there'd be wholesale changes to the side, and that normally comes with disruption and kind of unfamiliarity in terms of the patterns of play. So yes, obviously frustrating performance. A lot of debate recently in the last kind of 24 hours about how you lose a game, which I guess we'll kind of discuss. There's ways to go out of the cup, etc., which we'll discuss in more detail. I assume I can totally get the frustration, but for me, it all hinges on next week. If we turn up next week with the first 11, do a similar kind of performance, I will understand a lot more people's kind of frustration in the last 48 hours.
And talking of losing a cup tie in the right way, certainly extra time, having been in the lead for most of the game, is kind of there. Of course, you'd never want to do it. We met Colin at the Hill Dickinson, you mentioned it, to see the under-18s in the FA Cup. Really brutal way to lose, Seb, and they were probably good value for that victory, weren't they, that we saw on Thursday night? It
was so close, wasn't it? Sliding door moments. They played excellent football, 1-0 down, equalised within 3-4 minutes, was it? Took control of the game. And in the 96th minute, there's a chance for one of our midfielders, I would say, to trip the Everton player up, take the yellow card, reset from the free kick, and the ref probably blows his whistle. It was a cruel way, the way the equaliser went in. And then we discussed it in the stadium at the time, didn't we? You could see the more subs that were made, kind of, fatigue would kick in, and we'd kind of see a bit of a drop off in the performance. And it was ultimately very frustrating the way they lost, but they can be so proud. I mean, I think somebody put in Telegram that the guy that scored the 96th minute equaliser is currently making Everton squads in the Premier League at weekends and stuff. So, that's the kind of caliber we were up against. So a really impressive performance and very unlucky and heartbreaking for the youngsters. But so they play some excellent stuff and can certainly walk away with their heads held high.
And what's your impressions of the Hill Dickinson Stadium as we're all hoping to tick it off in the league next season?
It's impressive, isn't it? Yeah, it's a decent walk from the city centre. Parts of it do feel a little bit unfinished. We were in the concourse, weren't we, before the match? It's Wembley pricing, by the way, everybody. 2 beers and 2 pies cost 25 quid. So welcome to Premier League football next season if we do make a trip up there. But the stadium itself, impressive. I mean, the view obviously was exceptional. Really insanely bright floodlights. I think I've still got the markings in my eye at the moment. But a very impressive stadium. Hopefully you want that away day to be a early, like August or end of the season, kind of spring day where you can make the most of it at the waterfront and have a few drinks and walk along to the ground with the fan zone out front. But it's impressive. I like the way they've done it. It's not like one of these kind of soulless stadiums out of town that we've seen recently. It's got a bit of character and it's an impressive venue.
Joe, you were watching it, and you obviously are academy aficionado. The under-18s have had a bit of a tricky season, and Everton, in terms of stature, a little bit higher. I think they're the opposite ends of the Premier League under-18s, or you'll tell us more about the setup there. We like the look of the captain, Charlie Wood, and Ryan Doherty, we signed on deadline day from Stevenage, featured and looked pretty confident too. Were you, I don't mean the question to sound like this, but were you surprised at how effective Town were in this, in normal time at least?
Yeah, because Everton are, I think, third in the Northern League, just behind the two Manchester clubs, so United and City, and we are sort of rock bottom of the Southern League and have really struggled since we've stepped up to sort of Category 1 level. It's our first season there, but I think we do have a number of players that go out on loan, so sometimes we are naming a side which could be stronger if we had certain things. But I agree. I thought Wood and Doherty in the midfield, both, like Doherty's played a few games for Stevenage this year across competitions, and I think you can see that him and Wood both had a little bit of senior experience and a bit of nous in there on that side. And I was really pleased to see Sid Eldred up front leading the line. I think that's either his first or second start of the season. He missed most of last year with an injury too, but I thought he really put himself about where, put a great shift, scored a really good goal, and I think we would have loved to have held out, but a little bit of naivety, wasn't it, in the sort of game management at the end of the game. We sort of lost the ball in the corner, and all of a sudden you've got like 5 or 6 players ahead of the ball. The midfielders totally dragged out of position. Everyone was dragged, and they took the goal well, but we didn't really make it more difficult for them. And it did feel as soon as that went in, that was going to be the tie over, and it proved to be that. Very unfortunate with the 4th goal. It was sort of just a calamitous own goal, really, wasn't it? Not by the defender, the sort of the goalie's fault, really, sadly. And it would have just been nice to have that 3-2, just going into the last couple of minutes, just to see if something could happen, because you never know, do you? But once that trickled in, that was game over. But no, that was a really, really good performance, and must be one of their better performances of the season, and sort of did themselves proud, and hopefully can sort of take that into the league and try and just sort of pull themselves up 2 or 3 spots in the table.
Yeah, and some players to look out for. I mean, Nelson Eze's like a massive presence, isn't he? And we'll talk about strikers in a minute when we get on to Wrexham on Friday night. The wide players I liked. Who's the right back?
The right back, was it Bobby
Sains.
Sains, yeah, I liked him.
Good set piece delivery, good block on the line, wasn't there from him?
Yeah.
Lots of
It's a
communication.
shame that Charlie Compton got injured scoring his goal, because he is sort of one of their better players. He struggled a lot with injuries and scores the opening goal after 8 minutes and sort of poleaxes himself on the post and isn't able to play on. But I think he'd have made a bit of a difference if he could have stayed on as well. But it was, just one of those nights. But it's not. I think the fear is you turn up somewhere like that and you can lose 5-6.
Conceding so early as well,
go away from that. Yeah, especially after conceding that first goal within 3 or 4 minutes.
Yep. So we wish them the best of for the rest of the league season at least. But certainly can hold their heads up high after the showing on Thursday night. And as we say, hopefully back to Hill Dickinson in the league for the senior team next season. Let's get on to Wrexham then. I've put it off for 10 minutes as much as I could. We're back there. We've not got a great. We've been talking about the history of the FA Cup. We've not got a great history away at Wrexham in the FA Cup, frankly, have we? And we're going to continue the trend of 1 goal defeats. But let's talk about the lineups. Both lineups kind of relevant with the league game to come next Saturday. 10 changes, Joe, for Ipswich. Palmer coming in, not really a surprise. Baggett at left back versus Greaves at left centre back. Do you want to deal with that one very early, Joe?
Yeah, well, I'd say Kieran McKenna in the build-up to the game said, I sort of pulled out his quote, he said, "I'm not going to hide away from the fact that progressing in the Cup this year is going to present some big challenges in terms of the schedule, but at the same time, we really like the FA Cup." And he goes on to talk about players needing minutes and bits like that. And when you saw the team there, it looked like Baggett was going to be the left back and Greaves was inside, because it was sort of listed out in order on the team sheet that the club tweeted. And it's like, okay, if this is what you're going to do, then we are very, very much in a position where it's just like we are just picking the players that need minutes, deserve minutes, have earned minutes this season. And obviously, just to move on quickly, when we got to half time, when I saw O'Shea coming on, I thought, okay, obviously Baggett, he's really struggled in the first half, so we're making a change here. And then it was Kipray that went off, and Kieran McKenna confirmed after the game that was a pre-planned substitution. It's like, this is literally the 10 changes. The one player that we haven't got someone to change in for, we give them 45 minutes each.
Wow.
And that was the priority of the game. The priority of the game was giving people minutes who needed them. I think Elkin Baggett probably in a way, it's not needed minutes, but probably a reward for not letting him go out on loan at the end of last year to give him a start of the season, because he only played the last 2 or 3 minutes of the Blackpool game, didn't he? So I think he came on at left back in that game as well and played a few minutes. So it wasn't a team picked to win for me. It was a team picked that could win if they played well and did things right. The team could have won, but it was number 2 priority. And I think McKenna said we had 2 goals coming into the game. 1 was to progress and 2 was to give people minutes. But for me, priority A was the minutes and priority B was
which
winning.
order?
Yeah.
Because on the other side, Seb, on the other flank, the opposite situation to Baggett, you've got Ben Johnson, who we were remarking in the stadium has got 60, 70 Premier League appearances, and now his only real game time is in the FA Cup. What was your thoughts about? I mean, that was no surprise really that he comes in at right back, but it's a different situation for him, isn't it? Barely played.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there were many surprises at all in the lineup. I guess you could argue, was it going to be Taylor or Karius in central midfield alongside Dan Neil? I think when the lineup came out, we were all quite happy to see Egley in the 10. Everyone wanted McAteer to get a run out after his assist at Derby last week. And no surprise, George Hurst leading the line, expecting, hoping he can get himself a goal and get himself back into fitness. So no real surprises. And like Joe said, you have to play some of these guys because they won't have featured in weeks. Darnell Furlong might well get a 2-match ban. We might reach 10 yellow cards. So you've got to make sure that if that does happen, then Ben Johnson is ready to go. And the only way to get him ready to go to step in for a couple of games is to play cup ties like this one. So yeah, I wasn't too kind of upset with the lineup and certain positions. I kind of thought, right, well, it's a chance for the likes of Egley, the likes of George Hurst, the likes of Casey McAteer again to sort of show what they can do.
And an opportunity.
I think so. Just quickly on that, there was 3 people like Elkin Baggett playing the left back, Chuba Akpom playing sort of in the left 10 role, and Sandre Vola-Egley playing in the 10 role. Those guys have probably played a combined half an hour for us there this season across all of them. They're just not positions they'll play, and in reality, they're probably not positions they're going to play between now and the end of the season as well. So it was literally just an exercise in getting them minutes and fitting the team around there, because we didn't want to play Jack Clark on the left. With Mehmeti you didn't want to start him. Nunes, I've had like Nunes and Philogene being fit leading into this period. We might have been able to go a little bit stronger, but the reality is it was picking those 10 players and then working a team out around them, as opposed to sort of going through the team position by position to work it.
And you've got Akpom on the left-hand side, which we saw in his cameo against Derby. So maybe a little bit of experimentation there. And someone who's, is on a thumbnail for the show. And there's already a lot of debate about him in the chat. Egley in the 10. I guess we'll talk more about that as it transpires through the game. But auditions potentially for league minutes. We know we've got Saturdays coming up. So we'll talk more about that. Finally, Seb, your thoughts on George Hurst being made captain? I guess not a huge amount of choice there for McKenna with Noah Shea coming on until the second half. But yeah, any observations on that?
No, I guess there was very little other choice. I guess maybe Jacob Greaves at left centre half could have had it. Maybe Kipra, I guess, but he's not been in the building for that long. So I think maybe it was just a chance to give George Hurst a bit of confidence. Didn't he say that McKenna had come to see him the day before and kind of spoken to him, and I guess trying to build him up a little bit, because we all want a fit and firing George Hurst for the remaining 15, 16 games of the season. So maybe it was just a chance to make him the captain, get him out there and he can lead the team out, make him feel good. And if he can get a goal or two, hopefully to boost his confidence going into the running. But unfortunately, didn't work out like that, did it?
Very quickly, we'll deal with Wrexham and then we'll get on to the match action very, very briefly, folks, before we start to pick it apart. Probably, I think you were surprised, Seb, how first teamy it is. I think we've calculated 4 changes. A couple of injuries they're dealing. 5 changes. We're saying Joe we got it correct with 5. It's 5. I remember the last thing we said before we went live. Thomason comes in for Kakache, who I think we're not expecting to see next week either. Got injured against Millwall, as did Matty James. George Dobson replaced him, former Charlton player. You might remember George Dobson, a little bit of an aggressive terrier-like central midfielder. Other names to kind of chuck at you. We've got Josh Windass coming in, more on him later. Kiefer Moore on the bench. Nathan Broadhead on the bench. But Lewis O'Brien's in there, Seb. Ollie Rathbone is in there. The back line, the back 3 and the keeper are from the Millwall game. So there's a lot of, first teamers in there.
There were, it's the first choice defence. They play a 3 at the back. It was the first choice defence, first choice keeper, solid central midfield in front of him, swapped out the 2 wing backs. Ryan Longman, I think, started the Portman Road game. So I think that Issa Kabore was injured. So he started that one. Then he's a kind of a right winger / right wing back. So a chance to give him some minutes. And Sam Smith leading the line up front like he did against us at Portman Road. I was surprised to see Ollie Rathbone. I think he only came back from injury about 5-6 weeks ago. So I thought they'd give him a rest. But I guess with Broadhead being a doubt, then you've got to probably play Rathbone in one of those number 10 positions. And I was surprised how strong it went, considering they signed the likes of Bailey Cadamarteri right towards the end of the window, Davis Keeler Dunn, I think from Barnsley, Werner I think was injured maybe from Bristol City. So I thought that they'd have a chance to get some kind of minutes into new signings, but I was surprised how strong they went.
The pattern of both halves was erringly similar, apart from maybe the first minute where Palmer comes out very quickly for this header and nearly gets caught out. But Joe, after that point, I thought for the first 20, like we were in the second half, we're generally in control of the match, are we not?
Yeah, and we sort of working it nicely, creating sort of decent half chances. But sadly, in the first half, those half chances still fell to George Hurst, who was struggling, as we've noted earlier. I think Chuba Akpom had a sort of decent half chance. But after about sort of 15, 20 minutes, we seemed to just lose any impetus, or they took control of the game, whichever way round you want to say. But it went from us sort of dominating the ball, dominating territory, dominating everything, to all of a sudden they just seemed to have more running power than us, more sort of sharpness in their passing, more just push, more energy, more intensity, sort of attempt to try and push us. And it dragged us around, and it led to the goal, which was just pretty weak from sort of all round, wasn't it?
Yeah, do you want to deal with the goals, Joe? Because Seb and I were the other end of the. I mean, do we want to talk about? Needs to be really careful about this, but that chance for Hurst, the ball that flashes across. Do you want to at least give your thought on that one? Seb, that was down our end. If you want to, we're talking about confidence boosters, but scoring in front of an away end, games 0-0. Really, we know how important the first goal is in matches this season too. Would have been so much of a weight off his shoulders if he got it, and now we're talking about kind of similar miss to the Blackburn game, was it? Or I'm trying to remember. Was it Blackburn or Preston? Preston, maybe, I think.
He's just really out of form, isn't he? The poor guy can't get a break. McAteer down our side, right by the touchline. He kept kind of cutting inside at times. So this is one of the times he was still at the touchline. He drives and puts the ball in low. It's a good cross. Probably another one where McAteer should have an assist against his name, as we've mentioned a few times so far this season. And Hurst just completely misses his kick, doesn't he? And it just sums up the form he's kind of been in since he came back from the injury. I've just said a minute ago how leading out the team as captain, you'd hope he'd get a goal or two to really boost his confidence. But unfortunately, at the moment, that is how it's going for him in front of goal and kind of all around. And that kind of set the tone, really, didn't it? You've mentioned the early kind of error from Palmer, which we get away with. And as Joe said, George Hurst miss aside after 15, 20 minutes, they kind of seemed to want it more and we kind of retreated more into our shells. If that goes in, it's probably a bit of a different game because, all of a sudden he's back up confident again. We were playing well at that stage. We were kind of on top of the game. Kayus made a few kind of good driving runs from central midfield. And, that could have been, crucial in the way the game changed. But unfortunately, he didn't take it. And it just sums up, unfortunately, the form he's in right now since coming back from that injury.
And the goal arrives, Joe, after I think there's 4 corners in a row, isn't there, for Wrexham? They do wind that pressure up. And we've mentioned him at the start, but does a more familiar left back deal with Longman a bit better than Baggett or not?
Yeah, it all starts on the other side, doesn't it, where Cedric Kipre he loses someone, so he just pulls him down to foul him, but then they carry on. He just tries to foul him again, but they just drive past him and flash a ball across. And Longman's up against Baggett, and we know that Longman wants to come in on his left foot, and Baggett really shows him inside and makes it really, really easy for him. You've just got to get close to turn the line because you can't do any damage from there. He just flashes it across, and it's Windus, isn't it? He just gets across and takes a touch to take it past Palmer. But if Windus doesn't miss it, is it Smith just right behind him who would score as well? So it's a brilliant ball in, but you can't let somebody come inside you in the box that way. We got dragged all out of shape on the right hand side, but ultimately when you're 1v1 against an attacker, you've got to make it more difficult. And if they put in a decent cross and you're one man short in the middle and they score, okay, well these things happen. But when you let them come in like that, it was just a goal straight away.
Yeah, and this is probably we'll talk about how much we can read into this game for next week in a bit. That's where we'll go in the second half. But what Wrexham did really well, Seb, was when they had the momentum, when they had the dominance, the territorial dominance, they were creating meaningful chances. They were working the keeper, and obviously they've scored a goal, which is very different to us. And Wrexham are kind of, that's the hallmark of them in this season, isn't it? They take advantage of the buoyant mood in the home stadium as well, and something we need to be careful about for next week.
Yeah, they're really effective, aren't they? Once they go in front, they'll keep coming at you kind of a bit longer, but ultimately they're going to sit in and make it difficult for you to break them down, and that's kind of how the game went. They had the Rathbone chance quite soon after the goal. He kind of finds himself in the box on the right hand side, comes back outside, gets his shot off. It's not in the top corner, so Palmer's able to tip it over for a corner. But yeah, they just kind of grew in confidence. The crowd is then up, and we're kind of sensing it given the unfamiliarity of certain players in the lineup. We can kind of get a sense how it's possibly going to go, and it kind of stuck true to that. And you could see, couldn't you, once they got the encouragement from the goal, they really looked to build on it. The Rathbone chance comes quickly after, and they just keep going, and then we're kind of hanging on a little bit, thinking let's get to half time, look to regroup, and we can hopefully come out firing in the second half. But I think we all kind of got a sense that Wrexham, once they get ahead, having seen how obstinate and stubborn they were back in November at Portman Road, if they want to kind of sit in with the midfield and the defence and be organised and compact, they can be, and make it very difficult to sides to break them down and play through them, which we ultimately just couldn't do. Yeah,
when you've got O'Brien, Dobson,
yeah,
even Rathbone will drop in, Sheaf can come off the bench. That is a very sitting, containing midfield, isn't it? When you've got the likes of Windass and even Longman, they're willing to try stuff. I think that was the biggest thing for me in that game Friday. I don't know whether you guys agree with this. We're not used to this under McKenna anyway, really, is shooting from all kind of corners of the penalty area and getting crosses really swiftly into the box, because we like to fashion these kind of high quality chances. And I'll talk about the stats later on, because that does tell a little bit of a different story. But Joe, this is where we need to be really careful next week, is stopping these crosses, but stopping the shots, because if Broadhead is fit, we know he likes to ping one from 18, 20 yards. This is why Wrexham are up there, isn't it? They are happy to create chances however they come. They're not going to be too purist about it, dare I say.
No, it's quite basic style of football at times, isn't it? It's get the ball forward quickly to areas where you can do damage. It's not just pumping the ball up aimlessly. It's trying to get players forward, get forward as a team. And like the crosses, it was really noticeable just how many crosses were just being fired in from all angles. And I say that it's difficult to defend. It's a real challenge, and that's probably why Jacob Greaves played centre back instead of Elkin Baggett, because ultimately that box was bombarded throughout the whole game, and we needed to be really strong in there. And for the main part, we were really for all their territory. Obviously, they got the goal, but other than that sort of howler in the first minute, they didn't really have any big chances after that you needed Palm to stand up big and make big saves or big blocks. We were pretty sort of not comfortable defensively, but they weren't creating a huge amount in it. But it was a test. But I think it's a test that in the main we did stand up to, and you'd hope we will next week as well.
And that pattern, as I said, continued into the second half, Seb. Less so because Wrexham got the goal, and therefore they can sit back a bit more. But it felt like we made the sub. I think we were all speculating in the end as to why that was, and now we know after the fact. But it wasn't a great showing from Kit Pray. We talked about his involvement maybe in the first goal, but we did settle. We did try to take the game to Wrexham. We just weren't able to fashion any kind of meaningful chances. Okonkwo's not really got his shirt dirty, has he?
No, we started the second half like we started the first half. We were the better of the two sides. We showed a little bit more urgency. I remember Dan Neil, I think, getting forward on a couple of occasions. McAteer seemed to get in behind their left back a few times, but we created very, very little. And then as soon as the subs start happening, you kind of get a feeling that, momentum and kind of intensity of the game will start to drop. And obviously we saw some really strange kind of positional things from the players coming on. So I think that kind of told us where it was in terms of McKenna's priority when we see, certain players playing out of position. But likewise, they didn't fashion anything. Nothing really happened, did it? In kind of the first, 30 minutes of the second half, perhaps. Not a lot great to happen in the second half at all, but I can't really think of any real efforts. There was a half a shout for handball against George Dobson at one point. I think Greaves tries a bicycle kick and it kind of hits a bit. He's got his back to the ball and stuff, so that was never going to happen. And then, the substitutes come on and we have two strikers on the pitch at one point. We have Jack Taylor and Jack Clark at left back and left wing back at one point, and the game just kind of dissipates out into nothingness, really, didn't it?
Need to quickly shout out our mate MPR 26V, who's at it again with the super chats. Thank you so much for your support, MPR. We appreciate seeing you every week. If you want to do likewise, there's a button in here on YouTube, but we just appreciate those thumbs up, and 5-star ratings on your podcast app of choice are also very much appreciated. But MPR, thank you so much once again for your support of the channel. Let's deal with the substitutions and get your assessment on players coming in and out. 72 minutes, they all start to domino. Dan Neil, Joe, is withdrawn. Jack Taylor comes on to replace him. One of the players that needs minutes because he's new to the club and hasn't played too much for Sunderland. Your observations on him?
Yeah, I thought the first 15, 20 minutes he was really good, and you could really see why we'd made the signing and what he's bringing to us. I think it did drift out of the game after that, but the whole team did in reality. But I thought he did enough. I think he'll probably be quite happy with the 60, 70 minutes in the bank, and it's now just a case of is he the one we go with for the rest of the season, or who starts next week? It's probably either him or Jack Taylor, isn't it?
And Jack Clark comes on for Elkin Baggett. Seb, is that Elkin Baggett's last competitive minutes in an Ipswich shirt this season, do you think?
Probably this season, yeah, without a doubt, unless there's a massive injury crisis. Kipray's the first choice left centre-back. Greaves is the backup. That might alter in the next few weeks, given Kipray's form recently. But, Baggett hasn't even been making the benches when we've had, people out missing and stuff. So he'll have to keep his place in terms of training each week. And McKenna wants to keep him in the building as an emergency backup. But, unless something disastrous. But you could say that about probably half a dozen of the starting 11, couldn't you, in reality? I don't think there'll be many minutes shared about at all between quite a few of them. The substitution you just mentioned, so Jack Clark comes on. Did we go to it looked like a bit of a three at the back, didn't it? McAteer was like the right wing back and Jack Clark was the left wing back. Yeah, and then Azon goes up front with George Hurst. I can't remember ever seeing two strikers on the pitch, and that's all Azon ready to come on. We assumed George Hurst was going to be the one to make way for him, but they both stayed on and went up top, but didn't fashion anything at all, did they? Just all kind of petered out into nothing, didn't it, with the players playing unfamiliar roles. Wrexham were happy to sit there in the bank of the three at the back, the two central midfielders in front of it, saying try and break us down, and we couldn't at all.
Mehdi comes on for Akpom, Azon eventually for McAteer. Observations about Akpom in the left? He was involved, wasn't he? He's busy, but Again, we're not getting a huge amount of goal threat. He has a chance in the first half, doesn't he? A header come close in. I don't think he gets right, but is he getting himself any more confidence out of those minutes, Joe, on Friday? Probably not.
I thought he's probably one of our better players, but again, it's probably a low bar to clear. It wasn't a fantastic performance, but I thought he played. He was getting on the ball, but again, probably coming too deep, getting in areas where he can't hurt the opposition. But he looked sharp enough on the ball and got it and used it well and moved it around the park. But I think, like I say, you can probably go through all the players during this, and I think he's probably one that is probably pushing a little bit more than others at the moment.
McAtee, you said before, worth noting that there was no Christian Walton on the bench, not really a surprise. No Leif Davis on the bench. No Wes Burns on the bench, which obviously will create questions ahead of the league game next week. Obviously, he departed with an injury against Derby. So McAtee, we're kind of important that he needs to start finding his form, or people need to start converting the chances he's creating. What was your take on him? Maybe frustrating because, as you mentioned, him and Johnson didn't really have that partnership figured out, did they?
No, but I mean, they will have barely played together this season, will they? So you can't really hold that against them too much. He put that one great ball in for George Hurst after that. Did very little a couple of times in the second half. I remember him kind of winning the ball off their left back, getting the afterburners on and getting in behind, but either pulling it back to the wrong position or not being able to fashion a chance. So yeah, I mean, if Burns is out for next week, and off with a groin issue, didn't he, against Preston? So if he against Derby, sorry. So if he is the one that's missing, then I guess it will be McAteer in the right wing next week, and we'll see what he can do. But yeah, apart from that George Hurst cross right at the start of the game, I can't think of too much that he did.
Well, I'm not saying it's great, but when he was getting in, he did tend to win a corner at least. Obviously, you want more than that. You want a good cross, but at least he was getting something from it. Where earlier in the season, it was him running the ball out for goal kicks or giving the ball straight back to him. So it is progress.
And he's rapid as well. We do need to get him in behind a few more times. He is definitely a threat. Finally, though, 91st minute, you're trying to navigate whether you want extra time or whether you want another game in the competition. And I think, is it Ben Johnson whose corner it is? Alex Palmer's come up to add some jeopardy, so you can't say that we didn't try. But this is the moment, Joe. Ball lands in front of Jack Clark and probably just doesn't anticipate it, does he? Could have been a moment.
No, and yeah, that was the equaliser right there, and probably the best chance of the game.
Did he miss it on purpose?
Is a non-chance, but to be blunt, I felt going out was probably the better idea there, and another half an hour for people playing 120 minutes is probably not ideal. So it's not the worst thing. I'd have still jumped up and celebrated had he scored and been happy at the time. But I think looking back in the cold light of day, it's just get off the pitch, get showered, get home, and get preparing for next Saturday's game.
Yep. We didn't see it, Seb. Opposite end for us. That is close watching it back, though, isn't it? Like any touch.
A lot closer than it looked at the time. I didn't think it was as close in real time, but looking back at the replay, as you say, it's a bit like Gaza just kind of stretching in Euro 96, isn't it? If you can get the brush of the studs on the ball, then potentially it's going to be 1-1. But I think we all would have collectively perhaps moaned had that gone in, and we'd have to spend another half an hour kind of there in the cold and stuff. So yeah, a frustrating one, a really frustrating evening. And we wait and see this time next week how relevant it is to the rest of our season, I guess.
Yes, more on that later. Do get your thinking caps on for questions for the guys, because we do want to get your perspectives. I've run a poll on YouTube to see what our perspective is on this one. Just final summings up in terms of the stats. 54% possession for Town, 10 shots to Wrexham's 13. None on target, though, is the telling stats. 5 on target for Wrexham, but 4 big chances. I don't remember 4 big chances. Do you? And 4 big chances missed, obviously. So there are chances being fashioned, as we have all through season, but converting them clearly the issue. But we end up losing 1-0. We're out of the FA Cup. It's another game for Wrexham, I guess, which good luck to them. They seem very happy, but they've got the momentum, Seb, haven't they, at the racecourse? It was quite buoyant, wasn't it? Quite jubilant. If you're them, I mean, they didn't push too hard to seal their spot, did they? We need to talk very briefly about them. It wasn't the greatest night for Ipswich, but did you come away more or less impressed with Wrexham, or do you not read anything into it?
I'll be honest, they were what I was expecting. They're kind of what they've done. They're incredibly effective, aren't they? Once they go ahead, they'll be organised. They'll be tough to break down. They'll hang on to the lead, and the crowd will be behind them. And that's kind of what they did for the evening. I guess they'll want a big tie. I don't think they've ever had a big Premier League tie since the takeover's gone through. I think they're Sheffield
Forest,
United
a
few years ago. Yeah, Forest last time. But if they could get a real Premier League tie, then that's kind of what they're gonna want for the Disney documentary and stuff. So they were as expected, I would say. I kind of, you got a feel for it after the November game where we saw how resilient they could be, and we saw more of that the other night. And yeah, I guess it's another one of those sides where we mentioned on the Preston pre-match a few weeks ago, you just not a side you want to fall behind to, because when you do and they have something to hang on to, they are very, very effective.
They are, and we'll talk more about them on Thursday. They of course have a game Tuesday night though, so plenty of different mitigating circumstances around the game, which will be dissected in detail on the pre-match show. We'll be back after this to talk more about the FA Cup weekend and round 32 of the Championship for those who were playing after this from our friends at Atwells.
Blue Monday is brought to you in partnership with Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for property and business law. Whether you're buying a home, starting a business, or just need legal guidance, our dedicated team has got you covered. Trust our award-winning customer service team to handle your legal matters with care and expertise. Find out more at atwells.com or visit us at our offices in Ipswich, Colchester, London, and our new location in Woodbridge.
Thank you, Atwells, for their support of the podcast channel this season. You can find out more about them via the link in the description. In terms of bits and pieces coming up this week, it is back to the normal routine. We need to say thank you to George and Henry, who did the weekend preview in place of the pre-match shows. But Seb and I will be back on Thursday to talk about the league encounter against Wrexham. So do join us live 8 p.m. on Thursday. We've got blogs from Jack for anyone who's a subscriber on Top Tier, and then the usual run of shows. I don't think there's anything necessarily for Oscar and Adam to talk about and be on the scoreline that we haven't already dealt with tonight. So they'll return next week for the league game, and then weekend preview Flagship next Sunday with the usual lineup. So yeah, do come and join us, do subscribe, do give us a thumbs up and all that fun stuff. And as we say, do give us a review on your podcast app. We do appreciate those immensely. Before we talk about the rest of the weekend, let me just do final summings up before maybe we deal with it in the questions. I asked the chat guys about how people felt about the exit from the FA Cup. I gave them 4 options: not bothered, disappointed. Are they more worried about the performance than the exit, or are they reserving their judgment until next week? And the result is that the majority, 36%, are worried about the performance. 27% not really bothered. I think I'm probably in that camp, but 20% also reserving their judgment until next week. I guess, Joe, it really is a sense of the two results needing to be taken together to kind of form a judgment, right? Are you in the camp of the FA Cup is a distraction, as we said at the top, and therefore, if we win next week, all is forgiven?
I don't think it really matters what happens next week. I think you can only do what is right to approach the game and set up for the game in the best possible way. And I think that's what we've done. I think we've given ourselves our best chance for next week by doing what we've done this week. I know people want to win games, and I want to win every game we play, and it ends up like that. But really, you can't just say, oh, well, if we win next week, what's happened here is fine. If we lose, it was wrong. You've got to make your decision before the game, whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do. And I personally think it was the right way to do. And there's been a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk last week about people wanting to effectively lose a game, lose a tie, go out the game. And now there's a lot of criticism of the performance. But I don't really see the Venn diagram of get knocked out of the cup, put in a performance that matters. What is in the middle of that? Effectively nothing, because if you batter them and lose to a lucky goal, we still aren't taking our chances. Our strikers are misfiring. If you score a few goals and lose, it's like, oh, defensively we're a shambles. What's going on there? There's no good way. There's no good way for Ipswich to lose a game to Wrexham at this moment. It just doesn't exist. Like spirited game that you lose on penalties, well then you've got to play the extra 30 minutes, which isn't helpful. So I think we are where we are with this one, and whatever happens next week, I think the manager will go into it comfortable with the decisions he's made for this tie, and we've just got to back him on that and trust it. And like I say, you look at the players that played on Friday, and you look at who should be about next Saturday. It's effectively, well, Walton's going to be in goal. You're going to have Furlong, O'Shea, either Kipro Greaves at the back and Davis, well, they're all fine. Matt C was going to come back in and make a big difference in there. And is it Dan Neil alongside him or Jack Taylor? Well, Jack Taylor didn't start, so he might be the one that comes back in. On the right side, it's going to be Wes Burns. In the middle, it's going to be Anis Mehmeti. And on the left, it's going to be Jack Clark.
Yeah.
And we know the backups for them. We've got Jaden Philogene and Marcelino Nunez back. Well, effectively, across that three behind the striker, your 5 best players didn't start. So you've got that there. And yeah, the striker is a big, big issue. And we all know that. And I think that's probably for me, that's the biggest thing that came out of Friday's performance is that George Hurst has, like I say, I think some of the criticism of him has been over the top earlier in the season. I think people were talking about him as though he's been so bad and can't do this and can't do that. But since he's come back from injury, he has been as bad as people have been making him out to be before then. He looks totally bereft of confidence in front of goal. When he's controlling the ball, it's bouncing off him. He's losing it almost every time he gets it when he's trying to hold the ball up. He's looks on different wavelength. He's still working hard. He's still doing everything you expect of him, but he looks totally out of sorts. And Ivan Azon is looking good when he's played at times, but he scored 2 goals, one of which was a 4th goal in a 4-1 victory in like the 85th minute. The other one was a 3rd goal in a 3-0 victory in a 93rd minute, again, 92nd minute at home to Coventry. And you think he hasn't scored any important goals for us this year, and he's had a lot of chances to. And George Hurst is so out of form. And I'd say Chuba Akpom's maybe the other one. But that striker situation was, like I say, like best case scenario for me was to maybe lose on Friday. George Hurst score a goal, look good, look sharp, look like sort of the old George Hurst that we have seen, that we hoped we'd have in this year. So I know, so I'm going on a bit here, but I know there's a lot of talk about, the number 9's not in the team to score goals at Ipswich. We are effectively, the guys around him are supposed to score, and the number 9's supposed to bring players into play. And that is a role. But when you look at the big chances missed this season, George Hurst is top of the league for that. Ivan Azon is 4th in the league for that. And you think, well, if our number 9 isn't in the team to score goals, why are 27 big chances being missed by them? Why are they on the end of all these chances and not scoring them? Which makes you think that role has evolved, and we need one of them we need one of those guys to score us 8-10 goals. I know it's only 16 games left, but you need someone to get you 7 or 8 goals between now and the end of the season, or it's going to hurt us.
Big opportunity for someone to do what Nunez did and make the shirt their own. Maybe change the way that we play somewhat to suit them. If Azon goes on a run, then he's very much, the hot hand, and we're trying to get crosses into the box or balls over the top, as opposed to playing in the ball to feet and him having back to goal, which is what George Hurst generally does, and Akpom somewhere in between, isn't it? Any more to add from your perspective, Seb, on Friday night, the context of the 2 games, or even George Hurst, who's spoken to, I think, did an interview about his kind of mental well-being and his talk about resilience and stuff like that. Anything there you want to discuss further?
Yeah, he kind of said, didn't he, that the form is playing on his mind. He said he's a big boy, and he's been walking through the streets of Sheffield with his dad when he was younger and heard things shouted at him, so it's kind of shaped him, and he knows that, he's confident in his own ability. And clearly McKenna, giving him the captaincy, obviously, believes in his own ability. And it's just frustrating because, absolutely blinding pre-season, took the number 9 shirt, scored that big pressure penalty against Birmingham on the opening day, and you kind of think, right, here we go, we've got our number 9 for the season. If he can chip in with a dozen goals, then we'll have a half decent season. And since that injury against, was it Sheffield Wednesday? Was it he went off against just before Christmas? He's not looked the same player since coming back, be it fitness. I think it's more confidence, obviously, and we'll have to hopefully play himself back into form. As Joe says, it looks better, I think, coming off the bench. Akpom's kind of the one between the two, and he was in the number 9 role before he picked up that injury over the New Year and early January period. So maybe he's the one that comes into the side in the number 9 position and gets a bit of a run. Just going on the game quickly, something's up on Friday night. It'll be completely different next week. It'll be so different. The 3 points to play for. It felt, didn't it? Even in the stands, we said it. It felt like an FA Cup game that no one really cares about. The atmosphere amongst the town fans, given how cold it was, how far people had to travel, taking time off work, etc. No one really felt that up for it. It'll be completely different at 3 p.m. next Saturday, and you just got to hope that the 10, 11 possible changes that are made, those players come straight back in, and it's a derby away performance where we control from the first minute, take our chances, and look to push on. Because 6-7 days ago, we're all on cloud nine, thinking it's the start of a really great run. This has kind of knocked us a little bit, but if we can go there this time next week or next Saturday, put in that level of performance again, I think we'll win that game. And then suddenly, you've got two of the 3-4 away games. You've taken 6 points from, and the world's a much better place.
But I think, Seb, what you say there, I think this is part of the problem with Ipswich fans at the moment, and not excluding us from this, but we're saying that after the Derby game, everyone was really happy and we're looking forward to a positive run, and now everyone's totally the other side of the scale. Well, yeah. This was effectively this was a mid-season, pre-season friendly, or mid-season friendly, effectively just an opportunity to get minutes into players. We went away to Tenerife for a few days, came back, put some minutes in the legs of players who aren't going to be a big part of the running, and now we're going on that. So nothing really should have changed since the Derby game, but yet it feels like everything has changed because every result is like up here, down there, up here, down there, where I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to ask us make a similar observation. A week feels a very long time, given we were all very buoyant after Derby. So let's recapture the Derby mood. This is an FA Cup tie. We'll move on. But if you've got thoughts on this or a question you want to pose to the guys, and maybe give a different perspective here, because we're keen to give opinions here, but I guess what we need to cut through is a little bit of the up and down emotions and try to rationalize it and make sense of it, because it's all quite wearying for everybody, how everyone's super positive or everyone's super negative. Try and thread the needle in between. Should we deal with the results from the weekend before we go to questions? I've kind of done a half and half here. Derby bounced back from their defeat to Town by beating Swansea at home, which is a rarity for Derby this season. Sheffield United, Portsmouth, victory for them at Portsmouth. Preston, Watford cancelled each other out 2-2. Blackburn increased the pressure on Leicester, who were in the cup, by beating QPR away. Sheffield Wednesday finally scored a goal, but Millwall scored 2, putting Millwall up above Ipswich into third. And Monday night, we've got a question here from Nigel. I'll put this out here rather than asking you my own variation of the same question. Seb, he said, what's your prediction? But what's your mood and feeling about Monday night, Coventry versus Borough, Seb?
I guess the sensible decision and kind of outcome would be a draw. If there's 3 points on the table and you can lose one of them into the ether and each side gains a point, maybe that's the best option. But personally, I'd quite like a Borough win. I think, Coventry are an absolute free fall. Middlesbrough are looking really, really good. I know they've still got to come to Portman Road. But if we can, nail down, if Coventry lose that game with our games in hand, I know you've got to win the games in hand, but if we do win them, then we're back up into second. And therefore that might be the best option potentially. Maybe, I guess, a point keeps them both in touching distance, but I just maybe feel that of the two, we're far more likely to catch Coventry than we are Borough at this stage.
Yeah, do I disagree with that? Or
yeah, no, it's difficult too, isn't it? I think because Coventry, after they play Middlesbrough at home, they've then got their next 2 games on the road, and their away form has been awful. So I still think a draw is the best result, because ultimately both these teams are above us, and it's best to take points off both of them. But I sort of it'd be nice to see almost like Coventry score an early goal, stay in front, of Middlesbrough batter them, get back to 1-1 and can't find a winner. So a sort of demoralising draw for Coventry that feels like a defeat, and sort of one that they move on to the away games with no real questions answered. And
an 89th minute equaliser for Borough. Is that what you're after?
Well, even just like a 60th minute one, and Borough spend the last 30 minutes banging on the door and just not able to find a way through. I don't know. It's easy. It's easy to say this or that, but ultimately we need to catch both of them, don't we? So
yeah, Gary's definitely on my line of thinking here. Cov Borough, 20-man punch up and points deductions for both sides. That would be the ideal situation, Gary. I totally agree with you. In terms of championship teams in FA Cup action, aside from ourselves, of course, Norwich's excellent run continues, albeit West Brom at home. It's not a game that West Brom need at the moment, and no surprise they defeated there. Southampton beat Leicester, which means that our home games against Leicester goes ahead as planned. That needed extra time though. Birmingham got a draw with Leeds in normal time, and it needed penalties for Leeds to go through. Sunderland beat Oxford, and Fulham beat Stoke. Anything in there that you guys want to pick out? Not really a vintage weekend of the FA Cup more generally, is it? Trying to think. No one's really made any headlines, have they?
No, I guess was it Mansfield beat Burnley yesterday?
That was
Was
it.
it?
Good
So
goal. Good free kick.
Yeah, that's a bit of an upset, obviously. But apart from that, no, none of the games really appealed today. I'll be honest, I didn't watch any of them, so it's a bit of a dull kind of round. Is it Macclesfield against Brentford tomorrow night? Is it? I think that must be the final game, and then the draw. So hopefully the fifth round brings up a few more spicy ties. The Leicester result is useful, isn't it? You know, the last thing you'd want, given that we haven't been able to fit the Portsmouth game in yet. The last thing you want is another game to have to fit somewhere in the calendar, because those midweek slots are rapidly running out. So that was useful.
Yeah, and you want Southampton to get a tough draw in the next round, because then that means our Easter weekend isn't sort of kiboshed by them having to play an FA Cup game on that weekend. So Southampton away at Arsenal or Man City would be a nice draw for them to have in the next round.
Yep. We'll keep an eye out on that and figure out the permutations as they pertain to us. I think one of the possible fixture slots for the Portsmouth rearrangement has gone, hasn't it? Haven't Pompey?
Yeah, they've moved to a Monday night against Derby on Sky, so that midweek slot is now gone. So it's
going to be the Coventry / Barnsley week. I'm telling you.
Or I guess between Norwich and Borough, maybe in like mid-April. I think that's another vacant slot, isn't it? I guess they'll want to keep that last week of the season free as long as possible, won't they? In case we get another postponement, because the games will have to be ticked off by a certain point. So I guess maybe the weekend between Norwich and Borough is the first opportunity they'll try and get it done potentially. Yeah.
In terms of the league table, as I mentioned, Millwall do leapfrog us into third on 56 points, but they've played 2 games more. Hull, I think Hull not involved this weekend. I think Hull have a weekend off by the look of it. Still there on 54. Derby.
They lost to Chelsea in the cup.
Oh, that was it. I missed Friday night again. 4-0. Hat-trick of assists for Liam Delap, but still not very popular with Chelsea fans. Come home, Liam. All is forgiven. Derby up into the top 6. Preston also just outside on goal difference, 48 points as well. It's really tight all the way down to QPR in 13th. It's 44 points. So a win and a draw gets you near the playoffs again. You have to go all the way down to Norwich, actually, until you find the first instance of a 3-point gap between any of the teams. It is very chronological, is that? Or kind of very close together, apart from the top 6. So everyone appears to be in it, but Norwich, I think, have got a bit too much work to do. But everyone's getting very excited about their form, aren't they? Which I think we can hopefully disregard until it comes to April.
I think somebody put in the chat today, if they got 2.2 points per game between now and the end of the season, so title winning form, that would get them to 70 points, which is what 6th place is going to be. So they've got to do what they've just done again for another 10 games and then again for another 6 or 7 games. So there's just too much for them to do. So hopefully they'll just dwindle away their season into nothing.
Hopefully so, Joe. Thank you. You're always the person that we need to come on to these. And I'll also put this one to you as well as a fellow kit aficionado. Shabby asked if we won a game in the third kit. And more importantly, why? I know there'll be a lot of people out there in a similar kind of kit crimesy mentality. I don't know if the red and the blue is a colour blindness thing, but have we won a game in the third kit? And are you a bit mardy that we didn't?
I can't think of many we played in it. Bristol City we played in it, didn't we? But even when we played Blackburn in the replay of the game we wore it in, we wore the red in the second fixture. So I don't know. I can't think of another one we wore it. Did we wear it in one over the Christmas or New Year break and draw it? Yeah, who knows? But I guess I guess the third kit you have to wear it in games where you don't need to, because we don't need a third kit. So it's
will we be in blue
some of these games
Saturday? Then that's the question.
I'd imagine we will be in blue on Saturday. Yeah, I hope so.
There you go.
Come on, you Blues.
Little margins. Seb and I will be doing a lot of chat about the Saturday game on Thursday in pre-match. Let me try and find some questions for Seb that aren't questions that he's likely to be answering on Thursday night. So I'll stay with you on this one, Joe. From Colin, how many changes for round 2 at the racecourse? Will be 10, won't
10,
it?
Yeah. The only person keeping their place will either be Cedric Keeper or Jacob Greaves, or potentially Dan Neil in the middle. So,
and to that, Neil says, would you bring in Greaves for Kipray then?
I think it's probably 4 performances in a row from Kipray, which have been below the very, very high standard he was setting at the start of the season. I thought he was very, very poor against Preston. I didn't think he had a great game against Derby. At Sheffield United, I'd probably give him a pass for, because he did get sort of whacked in the chin very early on. They went off, not that further after, but he was at fault for the goal on Friday and didn't play well again. So I don't know. I think he's been really, really good for us this year. But like long term, I think Jacob Greaves is probably our answer there. But at the moment for these games where they're going to be bombarding this. I think probably Kipre may still just be edged ahead in that role.
Agreed. Yeah. Seb, Rob asks, do we still go in for a striker on a free transfer? If so, who? And Clinton asks similar. What have we got to lose bringing in a transfer at number 9? We registered 24 people in the squad. There is space.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening or not?
I don't know. I think if you get to this stage of the season and people are freeze, there's a reason why. Normally it means they've either had a really bad kind of injury layoff and they're working their way back up to fitness, or they've just simply not been involved. And either way, if you were to sign somebody this week, we've seen with Dan Neil, he came through the doors 6 weeks ago. Was it now? Maybe 4? No, not that far. Sorry, 4 weeks ago, maybe now. It takes time to build up the match fitness, to get him familiar with the patterns of play. So you wouldn't get the best out of them till probably, sort of March. And at that point, you're probably only talking 10 games or so left of the season. So no, I'd be really surprised if we did. I was a bit surprised. I thought Connor Townsend might get registered. I think he did Town TV and was saying he was pretty close to being back on the grass and involved, but I guess for whatever reason they decided not to do that. And I can't think of any real people who are out there who are free options that people are.
Antonio, isn't it? I guess is the
Did
one. He's had a couple of clubs. Yeah, I agree with what you've said, Seb, on it, that there's 16 games left. What are you going to get out of him? And if he's still not fit now, where are you going to get to? But I think with Connor Townsend, we can register him if we want to. So if he is fit later down the line, he can be added in as a 25th man.
Okay, there you go. So we're sticking what we have at the moment. We do need a Mark Ashton, Kieran McKenna, Matt Holland interview. Do we not? At some point, I think there were a few people talking about understanding what's happened with the transfer window. We usually get an end of window discussion. I know they were off to Tenerife, weren't they? So they might have put a delay on it, but it would be good to get kind of hear from them again, not least because of the emotion that we've talked about, the kind of up and downs, but I think some context on our choices in the window. Everyone kind of came out of it a bit meh, Mehmeti and Daniel, good signings, Joe. But are you expecting to hear from Ashton and McKenna anytime soon, or has it gone quiet on that front?
I think the problem is you can only really drop this interview in a week where the fan base is up here, because otherwise, so you got to get one done and hope you beat Wrexham, or you might have to re-record it for the following week to go out.
Well, we'll need to find. If we win, you know what to expect next weekend or weekend after next. Everyone, kind of a pretty general question here. Let me pose this to you, Seb, in advance of the pre-match show. ITFC Blue Armies. What do we need to improve? How do we get better? How do we win on Saturday next week?
Well, across the season, not much. We're conceded the fewest goals. We're amongst the top goal scorers. We're averaging 2 points per game since the transfer window closed. A lot of what we're doing is right. It just feels strange as a season, doesn't it? Because you can probably count the really dominant, decent displays on on one hand. I think the crucial thing we need to do, we need to show a bit of kind of, resilience, and crucially, we need to come from behind in a game of football. I think the fan base now, when we concede a goal, we kind of think, oh Christ, here we go. Because is it Southampton? It's still Sarmiento, the Southampton game, isn't it? That's the last time we came from behind to win a game, and Bristol City, the last time we went 1-0, a goal down, and came back to win a game with the Leif Davis late goal in March 2024. So I think that's what we need to see. We need to see in these last 15 games or so that, we are capable of overcoming adversity, and we are capable of getting ourselves back into games and take it to the opposition, like we saw so many times with late goals on that run in 2 years ago. You've got Bristol City, Southampton, West Brom, Rotherham, so many late goals that became kind of what we all expected because the side never gave up. That's what I'd really like to see in the next dozen games or so.
Or it's after Valentine's Day, so this is now our time, isn't
become
it?
Amazing again here.
There you go. We've tried our best, everyone, to align the planets and try and get the positive end to the season. We'll be here, as we say, in the usual times this coming week, Thursday with Seb and I for the pre-match. Joe will be back with Dave and Ben to talk about the Wrexham Part 2, Round 2, as Colin called it, this time next week. And Top Tier will have blogs, weekend preview, and next week we'll have Beyond the Scoreline as well. So do subscribe and take advantage of that. Thank you, everyone, for getting involved in the chat. Thank you for your questions. Apologies to those we didn't get to ask. And I think, guys, just have a good week. Positivity. We need to, be in buoyant mood. We've still plenty to play for. Coventry Borough Monday night. There might be some interesting context. So, it's only February. This is where we go on our run. Seb, do you want us to say goodbye?
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Tune in for the Wrexham Part 2 stuff later in the week. And yeah, don't get too high with the highs, don't get too lows with the lows, as a certain Mick McCarthy used to say.
I was disappointed you didn't say running towards adversity before as well. You talked about adversity, but not running towards it. So maybe Joe will do that. Joe, do you want to say goodbye?
Yeah, it's my turn to head up to North Wales next weekend. So hopefully I'll bring better luck than you two guys did on Friday. But yeah, let's all run towards the adversity of the Stock K Res, or whatever they kept calling it on TV the other night.
What's the concept? You got to do it.
I think it is Stock K Res. Yeah, the racecourse. K Res is racecourse. And Stock is a coffee brand, I think.
It's branded.
So, yeah,
we're brand loyal.
Football. Yeah.
On that, thank you to Atwells for their support as well. Have a great week, everybody. Look after yourselves, and we'll see you soon here on Blue Monday.